The match nobody thought would happen again. She had 4 championship points, 4 chances to end it, and she let every single one of them slip through her fingers. 12 months later, on the exact same grass, against the exact same woman, Alexandra Eala walked back onto a Wimbledon court to find out if she was still that same player, or if she'd finally become someone else entirely. Because here's what almost nobody talks about when they cover this story. This isn't actually a comeback tale about revenge. It's something stranger. It's about a 21-year-old who had to lose to almost everyone on clay, get booed by her own doubts for an entire season, and climb back from outside the top 30 just to get one more shot at the player who broke her a year ago. And what happened when she finally got that shot is not what you think. Stick around, because by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly why people in the Philippines stopped what they were doing to watch a tennis match on a Thursday night. If this kind of underdog story hits for you, hit subscribe now, because there's a lot more of this run still to come. Let's go back to March 2025, because you cannot understand what happened at Wimbledon without understanding what came before it. Alexandra Eala walked into the Miami Open ranked 140th in the world. She wasn't even supposed to be there. She got in on a wild card. Nobody outside the Philippines had really heard her name. Then she started winning. She beat Elena Ostapenko, a Grand Slam champion, rallying from 4 games down. Then she beat Madison Keys, the 5th seed and reigning Australian Open champion, in straight sets. Then she got a walkover into the quarterfinals. And then, on a Wednesday afternoon in Miami Gardens, she did something that had never been done by anyone from her country. She beat Iga Swiatek, world number 2, 5-time Grand Slam champion. Eala came back from a breakdown in the second set and closed it out 6-2, 7-5. She cried on court afterward. Not from sadness, from disbelief. She said she wanted to look up at the screen and hold on to the moment, because she genuinely didn't think this would ever happen to her. She lost in the semifinal to Jessica Pegula in 3 tight sets. But it didn't matter. She'd already rewritten the history books. First Filipina to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal. First Filipina in the top 100. Chris Evert went on social media just to say she was in awe of a 19-year-old who'd beaten 3 Grand Slam champions in a single tournament. For a moment, it felt like nothing could touch her. Then came Eastbourne. 3 months after Miami, Eala reached her first WTA final on grass. The surface tennis people had started whispering might actually be her best one. Standing across the net was an Australian teenager named Maya Joint. And what happened in that final has haunted Eala for an entire year. She won the first set. Then she lost the second. Then, in the decider, she had championship points. Multiple of them. The match was right there in her hands. And Maya Joint saved every single one, dragged the set into a tiebreak, and won it 12-10. Final score: 6-4, 1-6, 7-6. Now sit with that for a second. This wasn't a blowout loss. This was worse. This was a match Eala should have won, that she had in her grasp, and that got taken away from her point by point in the cruelest way tennis can end a match. For a 20-year-old carrying the hopes of an entire nation on her shoulders, that kind of loss doesn't just hurt. Plants a question. What if I'm not actually built for the biggest moments? What if grass, the surface everyone said suited her game perfectly, isn't actually her surface at all? That question didn't go away. It followed her into the next 12 months, and honestly, it got worse before it got better. Here's where the story gets uncomfortable, because the next stretch of Eala's season on clay in 2026 wasn't just a slump. It was borderline brutal. She lost in the second round in Linz to Elena Ostapenko, 6-4, 7-5. She lost in the first round in Stuttgart to Leylah Fernandez in straight sets. In Madrid, she actually looked sharp, beating former Roland Garros finalist Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, before running straight into Elise Mertens and losing again. She had a genuinely good week in Rome, beating Magdalena Frech and Wang Xinyu before Elena Rybakina, the same Rybakina who'd later become part of this story in a very different way, ended her run. Then Strasbourg, another first-round exit. And then Roland Garros, the clay Grand Slam. Her draw put her directly against Iva Jovic, an 18-year-old American who also happens to be one of her closest friends on tour, someone she's actually partnered with in doubles. Eala lost 6-4, 6-2. Gone in the first round of the biggest clay event in the world. By the end of that stretch, Eala had a 4-5 record across 5 clay tournaments. Not a disaster by tour standards, but not the form of a player who was supposed to be climbing either. And in the Philippines, where Eala isn't just a tennis player but close to a national symbol, every one of those losses got magnified. She wasn't just failing to win matches. In the public imagination, she was failing to become the player Miami had promised she'd be. Then, 1 week before Wimbledon, she lost again. First round of Bad Homburg, her final tune-up before the tournament that mattered most, beaten by Elise Mertens, the same player who'd already beaten her once in Madrid. She had spent that week training in doubles alongside 5-time Wimbledon champion Venus Williams, trying to sharpen every part of her grass game. And she still walked out of Germany with a first-round loss on the scoreboard. This is the part where, if you were watching from the outside, you'd start to wonder if the whispers were right. Is Alexandra Eala actually ready for the biggest stage of her career? Or was Miami the anomaly and Eastbourne the truth? But here's what those doubts were missing. Something had already shifted weeks earlier, and almost nobody clocked it in real time. Go back to June 7th. The Birmingham Open, a grass court event the week before the bigger tournaments began. Eala, the top seed, found herself in a final against her own doubles partner, Nikola Bartunkova. She lost the first set 5-7. Most players, especially ones already carrying a season's worth of doubt, fold from there. Eala didn't. She dug in, took the second set 6-3, then survived a nerve-shredding decider, saving 3 break points in the final game to close it out 7-5. 2 hours and 38 minutes. Her first grass court title. Her first win over a Czech opponent in 14 career attempts. It was a signal. Nobody outside tennis diehards noticed it yet, but something in her had changed. Then came Berlin, a WTA 500 event, and the real proving ground. She opened with a win over Donna Vekic. Fine, solid, nothing remarkable yet. Then the second round put her across the net from Elena Rybakina, world number 2, one of the most powerful hitters in the entire women's game, the exact player who'd ended her Rome run just weeks earlier on clay. And on grass, Eala beat her. 7-5, 6-4. Not a fluke, not a scramble. She outserved her, outthought her, and closed it out clean. That result alone would have been the story of her week. But she wasn't done. 2 days later, she faced Elena Svitolina, world number 8, a former top 3 player with nearly 2 decades of experience on tour. Eala beat her too. 6-3, 6-4, in 1 hour and 23 minutes. 2 top 10 wins back-to-back. On the surface, everyone had started to doubt her on. She lost in the semifinal to Linda Noskova. But by then, the result almost didn't matter. Because for the first time since Miami, there was proof. Not hope, not potential. Proof, sitting right there in the scoreline, that she belonged with the very best players in the world, and that it wasn't a one-tournament miracle from over a year ago. That run vaulted her from outside the top 30 into the world's top 30 for the very first time. And with it came something that had never happened before in the history of Philippine tennis. Alexandra Eala became the 29th seed at Wimbledon. The first player, man or woman, from the Philippines ever seeded at a Grand Slam. So when she landed in London, this wasn't the same player who'd walked off that Eastbourne court a year earlier in tears. This was someone with a Birmingham title in her bag, 2 top 10 scalps from Berlin, and a seeding next to her name that told the entire draw the tournament believed she belonged there. First round, court 12. Her opponent, Renata Zarazua of Mexico, a former doubles partner of hers, ranked outside the top 70. On paper, a manageable draw. In reality, it turned into a statement. Eala broke Zarazua's serve 4 times across 2 sets and closed it out 6-1, 6-2 in just over an hour. 22 winners. Dominant from the first point to the last. And then something happened that had nothing to do with tennis technique at all. When Eala walked off that court, the stands around her were packed with Filipino fans. Flags out, phones raised, screaming like they just watched history, because they had. People who had fought through some of the hardest tickets to get in the entire sporting world had done it just to be there for her. Eala said afterward she never expected to find something like a home crowd at Wimbledon of all places. But that's exactly what she'd built. Here's the part of the story you've been waiting for. Her second-round opponent was Maya Joint, the same Maya Joint who beat her in that Eastbourne final. The same player who saved 4 championship points against her and turned Eala's biggest opportunity into her most painful loss. 12 months, almost to the day since that match ended, the draw put them right back on the same grass, at the same tournament, in the same round of the year that mattered more than any other. Joint walked into this one riding an enormous wave of her own momentum, having just upset Serena Williams, who'd come out of retirement for one final Wimbledon run, in the first round. So this wasn't some faded underdog on the other side of the net. This was a player who believed she could do exactly what she'd done at Eastbourne, all over again. And for one set, it looked like she might. Joint took the first set 6-3. If you'd watched Eastbourne, this would have felt achingly familiar. The same slow unraveling, the same story writing itself for a second time. Then Eala did something that never happened in that Eastbourne final. She stopped the bleeding. She took the second set 6-2. And in the third, she didn't just win. She erased Maya Joint completely, closing out the decider 6-0, breaking serve, holding her own, and finishing the match without dropping another game. Final score, 3-6, 6-2, 6-0, in just under 2 hours. When the last point landed, Eala had done more than avenge a loss that had lived in her head for a full year. She had become the first player from the Philippines in the Open era to reach the third round of a Grand Slam. Think about the distance between those two moments. A year earlier, she was the player standing on the wrong side of a tiebreak, watching for championship points disappear one after another. Now she was the one closing out a decisive set 6-0 against the very same opponent, on the same grass, at the tournament that means more than any other. And her reward for that win is not a soft landing. Waiting for her in the third round is IGA Swiatek, the defending Wimbledon champion, the very same player Eala shocked in Miami back in March of 2025, when almost nobody outside her own country knew her name. That's the story underneath the story here. This isn't really about revenge against one opponent. It's about a player who spent a full year getting dismantled on the surface she was supposed to own, who absorbed loss after loss on clay, who had to fight her way back into the top 30 from outside it, and who then had to walk into the biggest tournament in the sport and prove all over again that she belonged. She's not doing this alone either. Southeast Asian tennis is having a moment of its own right now, with players like Indonesia's Janice Jen also pushing into bigger draws and better results than the region has produced in years. Alexandra Eala isn't just carrying her own story. She's part of a wider shift in who gets to be a contender on this tour. So here's where it leaves us. A player who lost her nerve at Eastbourne. A player who spiraled through an entire clay season doubting whether she belonged. A player who fought back with a Birmingham title, 2 top 10 wins in Berlin, and a first-ever Grand Slam seeding, and who used all of it to walk back onto the same grass and beat the same opponent who broke her a year earlier. The next test is the biggest one yet. And if the last 12 months have taught us anything about Alexandra Eala, it's that betting against her right now might be the riskiest bet in tennis. If you want to see how far this run goes, make sure you're subscribed, because this story is nowhere close to finished.